Hello everybody, this is Carlos Velez from Lacerta Bio, where we'll be taking a look back at 2018 and look forward to 2019. So what did we find interesting in 2018? Well, I think where we need to start is with the number of FDA approvals. So we're recording this towards the middle of December, and we have 55 NME approvals by the FDA so far, with possibly a few more before the year is over. Lots of oncology, lots of rare and orphan disease, as you would expect. We have a new antibiotic on the market, which is great. Some other interesting things on the list, like prevention of migraine, as a treatment for smallpox. It's interesting when you see this list of approvals, how there are many things that are approved by the FDA, but we never even hear about them because the markets are so small or so niche. So if you have a moment, take a look at the list. It actually makes for quite interesting reading. The fact that that's 55 NME approvals, I think that's great. I think it's good for the industry in general to demonstrate how innovative we are. So I think all in all, it's been a good year from an FDA approval point of view. And one of the more interesting approvals that took place this year is this one, Epidiolex. And if you've been following this story for a long time, there were some doubts about whether a product derived from cannabis could ever be approved, but indeed it was. It was approved for a couple of rare epileptic conditions, but there were a lot of questions, and fortunately for these patients, these questions have been sorted out. But I think what's really interesting is what's happening with the cannabis market in general. States continue to legalize and decriminalize cannabis for medical conditions. Health Canada has a great process for providing access to cannabis for patients for the treatment of a multitude of diseases like Crohn's disease, for example. And there's a lot of interesting pharmacology that's still to be explored here. So it'll be really interesting to see moving forward how the cannabis market moves forward, both from a FDA/NME perspective, but also from an over-the-counter perspective, if you will. So this is something to keep an eye on moving forward. The next thing is Europe. Wow, what's going on in Europe? Brexit, job cuts, pricing and reimbursement, political tension. Now look, uncertainty in Europe is certainly nothing new. Just pick up a history book and you'll see that. But we think that until Brexit gets sorted out, and by sorted out, we're talking about something that could take several years, optimistically speaking. There's still going to remain a lot of uncertainty around what's happening in the political environment in Europe, and then also what the implications are for the industry. So I think it behooves all of us to keep an eye on what's going on, especially with Brexit, especially in first quarter of next year. And, if the whole Brexit thing collapses, maybe we return to status quo. But if not, if Brexit does move forward, it'd be really interesting to see what happens, not only politically, but then what the implications might be for our industry. So what about 2019? Well, let's take a look, first of all, at licensing trends. So we had a conversation with a client recently about how concentrated our industry is from a licensing point of view, from a partnership point of view. And if you go back a few years ago, yes, we were seeing something on the order of 50 to 55% of all partnerships in oncology or CNS, and almost to the exclusion of many other therapeutic areas. That seems to be changing a little bit. There are fewer partnerships in oncology and CNS, and other partnerships in other therapeutic areas like endocrine and so forth. Obviously, the less concentrated, we think the better. But we think there's still going to be many unmet medical needs that'll remain unmet unless we have some better business models emerging. Anti-infectives is one area, for example. Pain management is another area where we could really use some just core, drug discovery, drug development work. So will the industry remain concentrated? Probably for the foreseeable future. We'll still probably see 45-50% of all partnerships within oncology and within very narrow segments within the CNS space. Next topic, we're the bad guys. I saw this article in the December issue of Pharma Focus magazine. This fellow, he's a politician, he's running for office, and he described Big Pharma as being no different than a Taliban. My goodness, the amount of, negative feedback and negative comments that our industry gets is just amazing. It seems like we're blamed for everything. We're blamed for opioid crisis. We're blamed for high prices. We're blamed for a lot of different things. And meanwhile, what are we doing? We're innovating. Right? We're developing, commercializing biosimilars, CAR-T. We're moving into digital and AI. We're still working on Alzheimer's. So I think we as an industry, we have, quite frankly, a lot to be proud of, a lot to be thankful for. Largely we can sort of ignore, people like this who describe our industry as being something like the Taliban. However, having said that, there is a movement amongst physicians to use exercise and training methodology like CrossFit, for example, to try to treat their patients who are suffering from diabetes with diet and exercise instead of sort of traditional, statins and so forth. And this, to me, is actually the more interesting trend when we think about quote-unquote anti-big pharma, where we start seeing physicians move away from, prescribing traditional medications and trying to use something else that perhaps is safer, perhaps provides better cash flow for their practices, doesn't depend as much on reimbursement. It'd be interesting to see if the pharmacist plays a role in this as well. So there's a lot of little moving parts in terms of the quote-unquote anti-big pharma movement. It'll be interesting to see how this all pans out in the years to come. And next, biosimilars. So this is the slide that I used last year. I really didn't see need to change it. We're still going to see more biosimilars approved worldwide. However, what's happening in the U.S. is actually becoming, somewhat interesting. There are companies like Sandoz stopped submission of their biosimilar recently. There are some biosimilars that are being approved in the U.S., but the companies are not pursuing commercialization outside the U.S. There's a sense out there, if you read some of the reports, that companies will stop development of some of their biosimilars if they can't be first or second to the market. So we may be entering a period where we'll see more and more sort of first mover biosimilars, but it'll be difficult for second, third, fourth followers to enter those particular markets because those markets may just not be big enough for some to have so many competitors. So are we going to see cost savings from biosimilars? Yes. Are we going to see limited competition in some of these markets? Yes, quite possibly. So we may see some biosimilars that are priced just below the brand, but maybe not quite with the cost savings that we had hoped. So it'd be interesting to see how the biosimilars markets pan out in the years to come. So these are the 6 topics that we talked about. Approvals by the FDA, cannabidiol, Europe, partnership trends, the anti-pharma rhetoric, and biosimilars. So where are we going to be in 2019? So we've committed to attending 3 conferences. We'll be at BioEurope Spring in March 2019 in Vienna. And if you've never been to Vienna, I highly encourage you to get there a day or two early or stay a day or two later. It's a beautiful city. We'll be at Bio in June in Philadelphia this year. And then we'll be at BioEurope in the fall in November in Hamburg. And keep an eye out for our Sunday afternoon primers. These are little get-togethers that we arrange, usually around 5 to 7 p.m. local time. The location of these will be publicized in our newsletter and on LinkedIn. And this year, we'll also be relaunching our out-licensing video training series. This is 4 modules, multiple hours of video training where we talk about out-licensing presentations, how to plan, how to write text that gets you meetings and conferences, how to follow up, and so forth. That'll start in February of 2019. And again, look for details in our newsletter and on LinkedIn. And if you want to learn more about us, you can visit us at lacertabio.com. We're going to redo our website, so by the time you see this video, you may see something a little bit different. But if you scroll down to the bottom of lacertabio.com, you'll see a place where you can sign up for our newsletter. Newsletter is free. It goes out about once or twice a month. You can also follow us at Lacerta Bio on Twitter. So that's it. Thank you very much. It's been a great year. I'm looking forward to another great year in 2019. So have a safe, happy holiday, and we'll see you next year. Take care, everybody.